I now call the December 11th, 2018 special meeting of the Riverton City Council to order at 7:02. And Councilmember Larson would lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance, and then Councilmember Hancock will issue an invocation.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Heavenly Father, we're grateful for the opportunity we have to meet together and discuss the business of the city. We ask that it please help us to be guided by Thee, to have our minds enlightened as to the needs of those around us, and to be able to find ways that we can help to fulfill those needs. We thank Thee so very much for the opportunity to serve, and we ask that it continue to guide this city and the people who live here, and we say these things in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen. Amen.
Would the city clerk please conduct a roll call?
Yes, Your Honor. Councilman Lance Scody.
Here.
Councilman Tim Hancock.
Here.
Councilman Mike Bailey.
Here.
Councilman Kyle Larson.
Here.
Councilman Sean Peterson.
Here.
Councilwoman Rebecca Schatza. Here. Mayor John Baker.
I'm present to declare that we have a quorum. The chair would entertain a motion for the approval of the agenda tonight. Are there any changes that we need to make?
Your Honor, I would move that we approve the agenda with the change of moving 8A to 8B and 8B to 8A.
Second.
No, C, I think.
I've got B on mine. But
I only have A and B.
water
okay.
treatment plant
All right.
presentation ahead of the International
Building code. All right.
presentation.
Have a second on that. Any discussion? Anything else? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Mayor votes aye, and the agenda has been amended. The first item on the agenda for this evening is Resolution 1382, Business Ready Community Grant Submittal, USDA Meat Processing Facility. City Administrator's report, please.
Thank you, Your Honor. Genuine Meats of Wyoming is working with IDEA, Inc. to prepare an application for the development of a business-ready community grant. The required public hearing for this was held on 11/20 of 2018. The next step in this process, in this application process, is the consideration of a required resolution of support from the governing body. The proposed facility is approximately 8,800 square feet and is currently proposed to be located at the airport industrial property. Funding for the project is a combination of private investment, IDEA Inc.-backed business loan, and BRC funding not to exceed $2 million. In this case, the city is not proposed to financially secure any part of the project. The proposed location for the facility is located at the Airport Industrial Park on a 5.88 acre lot that is currently owned by the city. At council direction, staff is currently moving forward on the disposal of land process, and that is ongoing, and it will run concurrent to this process. Zoning of the property is currently I-1. The slaughter of animals is usually only contained in an I-2. However, there are options for the use of this land for that, which include variance, conditional use, and rezones. There are options for all of those. However, they all carry with them different requirements. The documents provided as supporting documentation are currently in draft form or being worked on. Those items will be provided to council, assuming approval of this resolution, at the meeting on 12/18. IDEA Inc. is preparing those documents, which include a draft lease agreement, the contingency development agreement, the revenue recapture plan, and the operations and maintenance plan. So at the meeting on the 18th, council would consider those items in their nearly final form, with the understanding that those items can change throughout the process if something is seen from the BRC or items change here. It is a slightly flexible process, but not terribly so. For council's information, the management, for management of the project, for the purposes of the project, Idea Inc. is proposed to act as an agent of the city for the purposes of managing. The intent is for Idea Inc. to provide oversight and management of the project, with the city facilitating the drawdowns to provide funding for the grant source, from the grant source. At this point, we have no additional information. Staff recommends approval of Resolution 1382 as presented. We would stand for any questions, as well as having the applicant and the representative from Idea Inc. present to answer any questions for you.
Okay. The chair would entertain a motion for the approval of Resolution 1382.
I move we approve resolution number 1382 as presented.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded that we approve this resolution. Any discussion, any questions for Tony?
Your
Mike.
Honor, I'll be abstaining from this item.
Okay. Kyle?
Tony, I noticed that it's 5.5 Is that sufficient for numbers that they're looking at to harvest?
Your Honor,
Go ahead.
the selection of the land was from the applicant. However, they are here and they can discuss that a little further. It is our understanding that that is sufficient for their proposed project.
Hi there, my name's Bo Sheets. To answer that question a little bit, yeah, we think it's definitely sufficient with the research we've done and others that are relative in size. One misconception is this is a very big facility. It's called a packing plant. We are more of a custom processing plant that's backed by the USDA inspection. And so, you know, having 5.8 acres should be enough for our capacity of 68 head.
That's daily,
That's weekly,
weekly?
yes.
So that's roughly 10 cows, 10 animals a day, or is this 7 days a week?
No, we would be 5 days a week. So, you know, you'd be a little over between 5 and 6 per day if you do it on a daily basis, or at about 30 to 32 if we do it on, you know, 2 or 3 days. So it just depends on our schedule and how that sets up as we go.
Your Honor.
John, go ahead.
Hey, Bo, thanks for coming out and being part of this tonight. We appreciate what you're trying to do. I just have a question. Is there any thoughts of expanding in the future? And if so, that 5.88 acres, the building that you build with any possibility of expansion, is that a thought, or is this pretty much what it's going to be is what it's going to be?
Good question, Sean. Yes, I think when we listen to kind of the experts around Fremont County, the ranchers, the cattle companies, we think there's a need for it. But again, we want to be sustainable when we start for the first at least 5 years. Be pretty conservative, make sure we're doing a good job with our processing, making sure we're taking care of the guys that are bringing us the cattle and doing a good job for them. But what we've been told is there is a chance for a little bit of expansion as well, and we think that would be housed at that location as well.
Okay, perfect. Thank you, sir.
Tim?
It was my understanding when you spoke of this on the 20th, there wasn't much intention to have cattle there for very much time at all. I mean, in terms of the amount of acreage you need, it's really meant to be they're brought there. And what was the amount of time that any one animal is going to be there?
Mr. Hancock, that's a great question. Very, very minimal. A lot of that depends on the producers bringing us the cattle. Ideally, we'd have them there for a couple hours before they're actually taken to slaughter. So again, if that's a scheduling thing, and it depends on the weather, of course, and the producer schedule. But again, we would like to have them there the morning that they're slaughtered. So a couple hours, but again, there's some extenuating circumstances, so minimal.
Which would mean there's going to be a lot of, and we had kind of talked about this, a lot of, well, traffic, so to speak. You're going to be having people making use of that airport road pretty frequently. So we discussed, I guess, the hope that we'd be able to get some updates to that, make it a little bit more traversable, I guess.
Sure. I don't see the traffic, if even if a semi came in, you're looking at 2 semis a week to fill capacity. So I don't see that with the traffic being out there. I don't see it being a noticeable increase in traffic.
Okay, thanks.
Any other questions? All right, thank you.
Thank you, Bo. Anybody else in the audience that would like to ask a question?
Sure, I'd like to. I'm Kathy Klein. I posted this in a note last week, and so I don't know if that got read or not. But the question I had is if other properties had been considered, and in particular, why we weren't looking at placing this down around the water treatment plant across the street from where it had been previously, where certainly the issues with valuations and environmental impact would be more mitigated. On top of that, it is an area that creates some financial advantages from the federal government. And so I'm really concerned that this is a weird marriage with the airport. I'm concerned from a visitor standpoint, being a member of the Wind River Visitors Council, but also from having my home up there. And everything we understood about this area was it was to be a business park. And this is kind of just opening the door for it to be something very different.
Thank you. Bo, could you address alternative sites? Or Kevin? All right.
Honor, members of the council, I'm Kevin Kershishnik with IDA Inc. And so with Genuine Meats, we did spend quite a bit of time looking at other parcels throughout town and even out in the county as well. And so the first spot we did look at was down by the water treatment plant on Monroe and Smith. And there was one that's where where Baldez's old plant used to be, or where he used to operate. It's still down there. That parcel was too small for the needs for Genuine Meats. And so we had looked around. They were zoned I-1 in that area. We looked down by the Riverwalk. There's I-1 predominantly there. Stockyard is I-2. The round town, most of them are I-1. Those are about the only two places for I-2. We knew we wanted to be around the outskirts of town to minimize the impact to residents in town. And we looked north. We tried to do something with the Honor Farm land. That did not work out for various reasons. And then also on 8th Northwest and Honor Farm Road, or Country Acres on that side. The issue with the rural locations is that you had an infrastructure cost associated with that. In that case, the aforementioned land, it's about $1.2 million in infrastructure, water, sewer, et cetera, to run to that location. So we looked at those and we said, okay, what is the best location? When we're doing recruiting, what we do is industrial use. That's up at the airport. High tech is at CWC. Retail is north of town, typically is where we're going, or downtown, or up at Smith's. So those are the general locations that we've been using for economic development purposes, and we felt this was a pretty good fit for the location. I'll stand for any questions on that.
Thank you. Kathy's got a hand up.
Yeah. But need to do this.
Yeah.
So, Kevin, so specifically next door to the water treatment plant, not where the Baltez is, but across the street where right now there's a bunch of dumpsters just sitting there. City-owned property, tons and tons of acreage, 30-plus acres. Really, there's nothing in that space that would work?
Oh, I think there's locations like that could work, sure, just like the existing one would. And so we looked at them and said, all right, where would we want to go? Talked to Genuine Meats, and their preference was to go up by the airport as well. So that's why we decided upon that location. To say another location wouldn't work, sure, they could. You may have pumping issues. I'm not sure of the elevation change there and various other items like that.
So are we still open to looking at different locations then?
And so we've received comments, several comments about location since the public meeting on the 20th. And so we've looked at several locations, and I just kind of outlined those to you. The issue we're up against now is really the time frame for the grant application. The Business Council has granted us an extension on this, which is coming up in a week to 10 days. So if we were to find other locations, then we'd have to deal with ownership of the land. We'd have to redo the agreements that are in place right now for lease with an option to buy, items like that. So could it be done? Yes. Would that jeopardize the schedule today and likely push it out to the next quarter? Yes, that probably would. And if it does that, like we talked in the public hearing, is we feel there's a competitive advantage to moving this grant forward for this quarter so we can get into place. It would help for the construction season to be able to get the building hopefully in place by next fall, and then give us an advantage over other counties or communities that may be applying for this grant. So those are the considerations for looking at a new location.
Lance?
Your Honor, a question probably for Kevin. Has there been any planning or thought based on the visibility issue and the appearance issues to start really planning for what this would look like from the road so that maybe the community can understand? I mean, you've got the title of something that really brings certain thoughts and ideas. So really to speak to what does this look like from the road when you're coming in from the airport or you're driving up into the residential area?
Yeah, and we've briefly discussed that, and I know Bo can add quite a bit more here, and he will in a second. But what we put in there was that there needed to be signage, there needs to be certain things on the site location. We have a budgetary estimate on what it'll take to finish the site. The architectural drawings and the renderings and so forth have not been completed at this point, but that is of the utmost importance, we agree, because it is a thoroughfare in and out of the community. You know, people are going to see that when they're coming down the hill before they get to the Job Corps. You know, it's one of the things they're going to see coming out of the airport. So we understand the importance, and we've already started to include parts of that in the lease agreement. And Bo may have additional information.
Yeah. Thank you. And definitely, I think there is some misconceptions with the word packing plant that come into to our mind when we hear that. We think this will be actually a big asset for Riverton, both as an economic development entity and also bringing jobs, but as well as kind of curb appeal. We anticipate having a very nice retail front to this to profile Wyoming and kind of make it really a nice place to walk into to get some retail cuts if you want to come in, pick up whatever you've had processed. One of our goals also is to highlight some of the heritage going around with the ranchers and Bruce Westlake and his family specifically. Kind of build on their legacy and have some pictures from what they've brought to the county. This is a high tech as it can be for a meat processing plant. Some of the things we have are kind of proprietary in nature, but it will be basically surgical when you talk about kind of the cleanliness and what goes into it, and just the way it has to be cleaned every day to USDA standards, both pre and post, is a big deal to us. And some of the things we're going to add to it, just for curb appeal, I think it will be a true asset to Riverton, the city, and in that area. And so we could explain more what that looks like, but again, having grass out front, being landscaped, and just making it a nice place to come into as well as to look at.
Great. And Your Honor, I think I would just add, or editorial comment is, making that a real clear communication to the community. Sure. that your commitment is to make this look nice, not just to be an industrial site. Granted, that's what it's zoned for, but that doesn't mean that's what it has to look like. So that editorial comment would be is that,
right,
make sure that's a commitment.
Well, and that would be a question too. I mean, you look at what Hamiltons have done in Hudson. I mean, that's a very clean building. It adds to the town of Hudson. It's kind of a crown jewel of the town. So I would kind of question what the people of Hudson think of, their small custom processing plant that we will be similar to.
Mm-hmm. I think it could really be a gem of that area with that.
I think it could.
Philosophy, absolutely.
Okay, Kyle?
Would you say your building looks better than a broke-down rig?
That's a trick question that I'm not going to answer, but yes, I would.
Smart man.
Okay. Any other questions? Sean, have you got anything?
One final question. before-
Okay.
So I did take a peek because our last meeting, someone said go visit Hudson. I did go visit Hudson. It looks like Hudson is about a fifth of the size that you guys are talking about. Am I way off on that?
Square footage, have you got a,
Facility. They can hold about 10 cows.
They process between 27 and 34 per week of beef, and then an additional number of head for pork and lambs is what I've been told from the state inspectors. But I don't have Jared here to answer that question specifically. But again, I think in the range of 27 to 34 per head or head per week is what they do of beef, and I would say that. Size-wise, it would be comparable. Again, I don't know the dimensions on it, but it's definitely bigger than a quarter of the size. So.
Your Honor, Hudson is
oh, go ahead. I couldn't see who was talking.
5,000 square feet approximately.
Hudson's 5,000 square feet. And what are you proposing, Bo?
8,800.
8,800? Okay. So Kevin's trying to pull something up here for us. Oh, there's some pictures, huh?
Yeah, we just wanted to show a couple of photos of a USDA meat processing facility. I mean, they're going to be state-of-the-art, stainless steel, clean. There's requirements to have this thing clean, and Bo and his crew is going to do a great job. They're going to do a great job on that. You can see some of these photos here, and we just wanted to show you a few. I'm used to the touch screen. Okay. And a couple poultry ones here.
Should be able to click on one of the pictures and it'll blow up. And then you can use it as a slide. There you go.
Yeah, it's a poultry, but you get the idea. It's a lot of stainless steel fixtures, requirements, floors that are going to be cleaned regularly. I don't know if there's anything else there, but that's the type of facility that we're talking about. And again, we think the value chain portion of it, to help out the local producers, the local ranchers, give them an avenue for selling their cattle and not just having to sell it and have it processed elsewhere, add value here. You hear that at the state level, we hear that at the county level and local level. How do we add value to our local resources? This is one way to do it.
So how do they handle waste from there? So you got hides, you got gut pile, you got all kinds of stuff that you're not going to sell, you got to get rid of, right? How do you do that?
There's options. There's rendering plants that will come pick it up for you. Depends on the transportation distance from those rendering plants. What processing plants do here is they take them to the landfill and pay $80 a ton to dump.
Tip it.
Yep.
Okay. And is that done daily?
Correct. On kill days, yes, that's correct.
I see. Okay.
Yes. Now, there are some neat options, and I think this is where it could be a fun community project, working with like Fremont Local Foods, where you can do some really neat alternative stuff with the secondary products, whether it's fertilizers or composts or different things. But then that brings almost a different entity in. We won't have time initially to do that, so I think it could be a neat cooperation with another company company if they would want to start this. I know there's a company, we had looked at doing pet food with some of the products, but again, we just don't have the scope to do it like initially. There is a company around Jackson starting up an all-natural pet food, fresh beef, pet foods that they would be utilizing. So a company like that, I think, could be started here in Riverton as well to kind of take advantage of these secondary products that are being basically thrown away. But for right now, it would be rendering or taken to the landfill.
Okay. And the other question that I have is, are there going to be corrals associated with this outside where livestock are held outdoors?
Yes, correct. But again, they will be there for a short amount of time. They will be basically covered. They will have a roof over their head, and then they will basically be screened from any viewing of the public. So again, you would never see them unless you're there, like standing when they're unloaded.
Okay.
Your Honor.
Go ahead.
Just a clarifying question. The byproducts, you will self-haul it, or are you planning on putting it in a dumpster for the city to haul?
We had planned on self-hauling, but if again, there's a way to either contract that out or, have that serviced, we'd be open to that.
Just curious. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. All right, thanks, Bill.
Thank you.
Okay, so I think we've talked about it. Is there any questions? Did you have a chance to look at the actual resolution, Council, that was in the packet? Did you have any questions about that?
Your Honor.
Go ahead.
One small item. The way this resolution is put together is all of the points that we have put together were required by the BRC, and BRC staff have reviewed the document you have in front of you. Of course, can make modifications, but it was set up with the items that were required by the BRC.
Okay. All right. So, okay, well, maybe Kevin, can you come back and answer a couple more questions for me? Okay, so when Bo goes broke up there, okay, what happens to the building? Does Idea Inc. own it?
Yeah, so, yes, what'll happen with that, there's several things put in place. One is with the kind of the golden spike, if you will. A couple things will be put in place. One is that they're going to have to guarantee the BRC grant. Okay, for that portion, if something happens and they go out of business, if they have any financial wherewithal at that time at all, they would have to make whole the grant portion, okay, the recapture portion of that grant.
I see.
If for some reason they went out of business, they left town, and there's no way of getting any funds back at all in that process, then that's where the recapture, I think it's a recapture agreement, basically what it's, or the maintenance agreement. It says that IDEA will continue to pay whatever's required there. If there's any lease payment, recapture, land lease to the city, et cetera, for that period of time. The lease also states that after year 5, the company would have the option to purchase. If they purchased at fair market value after year 5, and then they went out of business or something like that happened, then it'd be just like any other business. It would go into foreclosure, et cetera.
Okay, all right. Does the city ever own it?
The building?
Yeah.
No, the way the contingency development agreement is structured is such that that asset would be owned by the city / Idea Inc. for the first 5 years. At that time, then Idea Inc. would own the facility, and the way it is today, the land is owned by the city.
Okay, so I guess I could see that for the first 5 years, the city might have some say in
that, so the contingency development agreement, the way it's structured, is it's stating that IDEA would take all that liability and all that risk to make things whole in that process. And as collateral, they would own the building that was provided via the BRC grant. The land, as the way it's written today, is still under the city. If we decide to make a purchase of the land in addition to the building, then all that liability could shift to IDEA.
I see. Okay. All right. So the city doesn't have any, other than the paperwork that we've been involved in, that's the extent of our, I guess we have to handle the money, right?
That's correct.
Okay.
Yeah, because the grant funds can only be distributed from the state to the municipality.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Okay.
Any other questions, council? Ready to vote? All in favor of the motion, say aye.
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 Any opposed? Mayor votes aye. Thank you. Okay, the next item of business is to convene into a work session. And so the chair would entertain a motion to convene into a work session.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Mayor votes aye. We're now in a work session, and the first item on the work session is a presentation on the water treatment plant. And you guys can stay and watch if you want. Find out how we make drinking water.
I'm surprised we don't have some representatives from Flint, Michigan.
What time? What time are you thinking? Like 9:30 or 10? Yeah, 9:30 to 10. Just shoot me a text when you're on your way. That way, I'll make sure I'm there. Don't ask me any tough questions. All right. Super nice kid. Sorry about that.
All right, bear with me here. So I'm just doing a quick kind of review. Sorry. Just a quick review of kind of what we do up at the water plant.
Tell us your name.
My name's Eric Wember. I'm the backup chief operator at the water plant.
Thank you.
So let's get going here. Basically, we're a conventional filtration plant. All that means is it's kind of old school. We bring water in from the ditch, the LeClaire Canal. Dirt settles out. We add a coagulant chemical to help the rest of the dirt stick together. It settles out. Then we run it through a filter and disinfect it and send it out to the city. You can kind of, this isn't our exact setup. I found it on the internet, but the only difference we have is right there, the variable quality water source. We actually have another step of a big preset basin that allows another settling opportunity for the heavier particles. So I guess we're more high tech than this one. Feel free to ask any questions as I go along. I'm pretty new at this, so I'll try to make sense of everything. So coagulation, like I said, you add a chemical. We use aluminum sulfate. It's basically a magnet to make the dirt particles stick together so they get heavy enough they can settle out of the water. And you can see on the picture on the left how gross that water is there. That's pretty common with any storm in the Du Bois direction. I know you've all seen the rivers when they look like chocolate milk. So you can see how good our process works, because the water on this side, it's hard to tell from the picture, but you can see to the bottom of that. I mean, it just in that short step, that's how much dirt we're removing out of there. And that's before the filtration, which is on the right. So it goes from those basins out there into the filters, and then by the time it goes through our filters, we can have up to 400 turbidity units, which is just a really high number for how dirty the water is. And by the time we filter it out, it's down to like 0.04. So we definitely have a good process, good chemicals we use. Is there any questions so far? Here are the chemicals that we use. I mentioned the aluminum sulfate. That's the coagulant. Potassium permanganate we use for taste and odor, as well as the powdered activated carbon. And then sodium hypochlorite, which is just the strong bleach. We use that for our surface water disinfection. And then our groundwater wells, which I'll get into next, we use chlorine gas at each well site. And then the well field, it's basically only in the winter we do this. We do run wells in the summer as supplemental, or if for some reason our plant gets shut down for either too dirty a water to treat or various issues we might be having. We have 14 wells throughout the city. All of them are disinfected with chlorine gas, and that is the only treatment the wells receive. And they pump directly into the distribution system, and then any excess goes up into our reservoirs. We have 6 reservoirs. It's a little over 7 million gallons of storage that we have, and 3 booster stations, which the Main Street booster station, the first one listed there, just provides water to the lower end of town, so anywhere from High School Hill east, I guess that would be basically. And then the water treatment plant booster and the JCC booster allow us to pump water that we make from the plant up to the airport tank, which up until 2014 we were never able to do. And I'll get into that project a little later too. And overall we have 5 pressure zones in town. All that is they're kind of just separated zones in town. We can still move water in between them all and things like that, but they each are kind of their own thing. Some of our challenges, of course, operating and maintenance costs. It astounds me how expensive operating a water plant is. It's insane. Everything from it, from the cost of the chemicals to replacing a O-ring on a part, it's crazy. The age of our equipment, we are definitely moving in the right direction there. But the plant, I believe, was put in online in 1981. So it's no spring chicken of a plant by any means. And most of our wells are quite a bit older than that. And age of our infrastructure, so the underground valves that we exercise, there's some pretty critical ones that they're getting up there, probably 50 plus years old, a couple of them. And then our main operation issue would be our spring runoff. We get the really dirty water, and the chemistry changes sometimes hourly. We'll do a jar test to try to find a dose for our coagulant, and by the time we get it done and make the adjustment, it has changed again. Luckily, fortunately, it's usually only 3 or 4 days a year that it gets that bad. But, that can obviously change with the seasons too, so. And then the overall age of the plant I kind of mentioned. And really all that is like the electrical codes obviously have changed. We got a MCC upgrade, which I'll cover a little later, that definitely helped us. The old electrical was half dangerous in my mind. And then retrofitting challenges we've kind of got into a little bit when we replaced some of the paddle wheels and stuff outside in our basins. And it's just a lot of work to get things custom built to fit in certain areas and things like that. Technological challenges, pretty much our biggest challenge is we live in a disposable world. There's no things get rebuilt, it seems like, anymore. And unfortunately, the cost doesn't go down because of that. It tends to get more expensive because of how high-tech everything is. And then our cost of our monitoring equipment, which that really goes fast, it seems like. We have some equipment that's only 4 years old, and they're telling us it's outdated and they don't service it anymore. So, and those, we're talking $4,000 a piece for some of these things or better. And then electronics reliability, everything has circuit boards, and troubleshooting circuit boards is not real easy to do. So we tend to replace a lot of circuit boards on some things. Physical challenges, maintaining our properties, I think, is our biggest challenge. We have a crew of 6 people plus our chief operator. In the summertime, we work shifts where there's maybe 2 of us there. So weed control at all of our well sites is kind of hard to do. In the winter, snow removal's a challenge. We've got, of course, all those well sites as well as our parking lot and things like that. And then rebuilding equipment in-house. I didn't really word this the greatest, but sometimes we need specialized tools, so it's almost beneficial to just pay somebody else to rebuild things, even though it might cost a little more. I don't know if it's worth buying the tools to do it ourselves if we're only going to use it once every 4 years or so. But that's kind of a challenge also. Is there any questions so far?
Kyle?
What's your throughput in the summertime?
I'm sorry?
What is your throughput in the summertime?
Production?
Yeah.
Our plant runs at 4.5 million gallons a day. We tend to run mostly when we're really ramped up in the middle of the summer, just under 4 is what we put out each day, 4 million gallons.
In the wintertime, that decreases, goes to half or 2/3, or?
I would say at least half. It's a lot more in the summer. If we didn't have the water plant, we could not keep up in the summer with our wells. There's no way without restrictions. In the winter, we could probably keep up with running half of our wells. So, some training requirements we have for personnel. I'm sorry.
Andy, you've got a question?
Oh, I've got a comment. I don't want to really interrupt Eric too much, but I'm a little offended that you referred to that infrastructure as antiquated, because I worked on that in the summer of 79 and 80. I was telling Rich it was a great job. My roommate from college college, and I got signed on in June of when it was a 12 by 12 hole in the ground, and we saw it all the way. I had to go coach football in Lusk in August of '80, so we didn't see the final setting, but pretty miraculous back in '79 and '80 for for a size XL shirt and a size extra small hat back in those days. I don't know. It's just I went up there a couple years ago with Eric. It's still pretty amazing, and it was I think it was a good idea when the city did it 40 years ago. But yeah, I think I'm the last. Well, Dave Young was the city inspector on the job. If you guys know Dave, so Dave was young then. I'm not much different. It's pretty interesting to see this. So go up and see it.
I was not even around yet. So.
There you go.
Refers to, I soldered those. Those were 8-inch copper air-controlled valves. And those are all gone now, aren't they?
Yeah.
Yeah, because I mean, miles of soldering, laying on your back, soldering. At $9 an hour in 1979. That's all I just wanted to know.
Thanks, Randy. Go ahead, Eric.
So in order to receive our licenses, I kind of made a chart here. The level 1, you need 6 months of experience and 35 lifetime water hours. It's really easy to achieve. And I should mention, it's kind of in the bottom there, but each level you have to pass a test, and those are insanely difficult. The level 2, you need 1 year of experience and 70 lifetime hours in water. And then level 3, it gets a little different. You have to have 2 years of experience, but you have to have one of those 2 years in a class 2 plant or higher. Currently, Riverton's a class 3 plant. And there's talk with the EPA that eventually it will probably be a level or a class 4 again. I think, Millie, was it a class 4 at one time?
Yes.
Okay. I'm not sure when they reclassified that or why.
7 or 8 years ago.
You know why they did that?
New rules.
The government. Oh.
Is level 4 worse or better?
It's more steps, I guess, basically, is all.
A higher level?
Higher level, yes.
Okay. So we've been reduced.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then you need 300 lifetime water hours in order to get your level 3. Level 4, you need 400 lifetime hours and 3 years of experience, and 2 of those 3 have to be in a class 3 plant or higher. And then in order to maintain our licenses, for each license you might hold, you need 24 education hours in 3 years. Every 3 years, at least 24 hours. 8 of those hours have to be in what the DEQ deems core hours, so things that pretty much every water plant deals with, I guess, disinfection and things like that. And then 2 of those hours, they just started this year, I believe, have to be in rule training. So
So when you say lifetime hours, that's training, some kind of formal classroom training?
Yep.
Okay.
And you can do study books, and you get a certain amount of hours for each book you go through, or when you go to conferences, water conferences, you get hours for however many classes you take there.
Okay.
And all of that counts towards lifetime. And at the same time, it can count towards your continuing education for that 3-year period. Whoops. I'll throw a little love to our operators up there. I should add that we have a great crew. I am so thankful for those guys up there. Millie, of course, everyone knows, is our chief operator. I'm the backup chief. Justin Davis and Michael Menzies, I'm not sure if you guys know them. They're each level 4 operators, and Tim Pierce and Chris Simon are level 3s. And then we hired Mike in May, and he is pretty close to taking his level 1 test, so we'll see how that goes. And here, I thought I would kind of show the council where some of their money's gone in the recent past. picture's covering that up now. That's weird. So this is our flock basins and sedimentation basins outside. The two upper pictures are the old equipment. You can see how rusted it was and old. And then the bottom ones are the new stainless steel upgrade, and I believe that was 2011. And they have been great. The best part of it for me is the chains that you can see in the bottom left, or excuse me, bottom right, are plastic now. And before they were extremely heavy steel chains that about ripped your finger off when you were trying to set them on the sprockets. So this was a great upgrade. Our Main Street booster station, we got upgraded in 2013. The upper left picture is our old control valves. It's really difficult to see just how in bad a shape those were. The right-hand side is our new ones. Nice, shiny, fancy Singer valves. And then the middle picture I kind of liked because the pump on the left is our new pump motor, and the one on the right was the old one they replaced. And they were those original in that? So 50 plus years old. And just the amount, the little pump motor pumps the same amount of water as that big one did with a fraction of the cost. So I think that's interesting how far we've come there. The water treatment booster station was part of, is that phase 2? Phase 2 upgrades. That is behind our water treatment plant, and it allows us to pump the water from that 2 million tank up to the new JCC tank in the middle of Airport Hill. And then that is our JCC booster station and tank. And from there, we can now pump up to the airport tank. And also, they put a fire suppression pump in there for the Job Corps when they built that. And if you ever want to get scared of a water pump, watch that one run. It'll be the only thing they'll ever use it for is a fire. This is our MCC upgrade in 2015. Again, the picture on the left is the old one. It's really hard to tell just how outdated it was. That's the only picture I could find of that. And then the one on the right is our new setup. What it doesn't really show is the footprint on the new one. It is probably less than 3/4 of the size of the old one, and still does everything plus more. And our high service pump replacement was also 2015 was the first year we used the new ones. It used to be we had one pump that would pump 3 million gallons a day. The other one would pump 1, and then we had one that would pump up to 500,000 a day. So the problem with that was when our big pump died, we could not keep up with demand, nor could we really dose. It's really hard to dose when we were running at such a low amount of water running through there. The new pumps are all the same size, and they all run on VFDs, which are variable frequency drives, so we can actually type into our computer how much water we want leaving the plant, and those things will ramp to where we need it to be. And if one goes out, we still have the other two that can still keep up with demand. And then the last one I've got is our flow meters that we got put in last year. Without trying to get too long-winded here, basically our old ones were not resetting the flow back to 0 and we would shut the plant down. So we never technically knew for sure how much water we were really pumping out of there, which really messed with our flows going through our filters and we haven't technically proven it, although this summer went 100% better, but we believe we were actually operating at more than the plant was rated for, so our filter performance was dropping and it caused all sorts of issues. So these things saved our butt this year. And we've got 5 of them total. Plus, I should add, they are, what is Dusty called? Control engineer?
Yeah.
So the computer guy, he was able to cut out 3 flow meters and still have our plant run optimal, which saved us a lot of money, so thank God for him. That's all I have. Is there any questions?
Any questions? Council? Audience? Anybody? Kyle?
Your Honor, can I make a comment?
Yes, you can.
I've always been impressed with Millie's supervisor skills, but when I made this assignment, I'm even more impressed that she was able to delegate responsibility to one of her subordinates. So hats off to Millie's managerial skills and delegation, but I do want to highlight that team. Millie is one of your best supervisors in the city, and Eric's one of your best employees in the city. The last few years, the water treatment plant crew has not been able to run the plant the way it was designed and in automation because of some of the issues that Eric talked about. And so these folks would talk by walkie-talkie upstairs and downstairs to make sure that the product being produced was appropriately dosed, was getting the appropriate flows, and because of the ingenious minds of these folks, they were able to keep water in service. It was healthy, and a lot of lost sleep, I think, on Millie's part. But they ran it manually when it was supposed to be running on automated mode. So that's a testament to the commitment of these folks. And I just wanted to highlight the value that we have in these highly trained, highly educated employees.
Thanks, Kyle.
Thank you.
Alan?
How many additional people could we service with the water treatment plant we have?
Whoops.
So the question is, what's the capacity of the plant? How many more people could live in Riverton without making a big upgrade in the water treatment plant?
I'm going to say not much more, honestly, in the summertime. The wintertime, we have plenty of water. Summer with the irrigation, there's sometimes we're running the plant at full capacity and we're just maintaining tank levels, so. And that's now.
Okay. So what would you have to do to increase capacity?
That would be a question for engineers, I think. They would have to add some filters and new, they call it trains, I guess, so more basins outside, more flock paddles and things like that.
Your Honor, I can help with that one.
Go ahead.
Really simply, I mean, it's expanding the plant, like Eric was saying. And then we have to remember, we do have a certain amount of water right from the river that goes to the treatment plant. And so we are a little bit limited on how much water we can divert from the LeClaire Canal based on the 1977 right we have. We have accrued a few more rights over the years through the petitions we make to the Board of Control and a few more CFS from that. So I think it's a two-step process. One, we upgrade the facility for size, and then two, we make sure that we have the right to the river for the amount of water we need.
Okay, Kyle?
And that's in excess of 4 million gallons or cubic feet or however you measure that. What is that right now? Do we need to worry about getting more water rights?
Your Honor, I'd have to take my shoes off to do the math on that one, to carry the one. But really, it's a different way to measure it. He's talking about million gallons a day, our water rights in cubic feet per second. So we'd have to calculate that out. Right now, our water right with the amount that we produce a day is about right. We've accrued a couple more CFS in rights that we've received from residents in the town of Riverton on a 1906 priority date. I think it's always a good idea to acquire more rights, especially rights with earlier priority dates. I guess this is a long answer to say I'm not really sure exactly what that MGD would be to the CFS that we have from the river.
It's a question for our trainee.
Go ahead, Mike.
Okay, I have a question. So you have the list of the plant operators there, and you've got some that are at level 3 and level 4, and that takes them having a certain percentage of their hours at a level 3 plant?
Yes.
We only have a level 2 plant, so how do you accomplish getting them the time in a higher level plant?
Our plant is actually a class 3.
Okay.
So
our plant time counts for them to get to level 3 and level 4?
Yep.
Okay, so we don't have to send them off somewhere?
No, no.
Thank you, Eric.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Millie. Okay. Thank you, Kyle. Dawn?
Merry Christmas, everybody.
Okay. Okay, the next item is International Building Code updates discussion. Report from the Community Development Director, please.
Thank you, Your Honor. The state of Wyoming adopted the 2018 International Building Codes earlier this year. It was about July. And the state's adoption included the 2018 International Building Code, the International Fire Code, International Fuel and Gas Code, Mechanical Code, and Existing Building Code. The International Code Council, or ICC, releases new versions of the building code on about a 3-year cycle, so 2012, 2015, 2018. Wyoming Statute 35-9-121 allows municipalities such as Riverton with local enforcement authority 6 months to adopt new building codes after the state does so every 3 years. The City of Riverton's recommending body for building codes is the Board of Appeals. The Board of Appeals is a 7-member board comprised of local builders and tradesmen. The 2018 building codes were provided to the Board of Appeals on September 27th in 2018 for their review and comment. On November 15th, the Board of Appeals met and recommended council adoption of the 2018 codes with the same exemptions and omissions as the 2015 building codes with the following additions. The Board of Appeals recommended fire suppression systems required in single-family residences with a living space greater than 5,000 square feet. The 2018 Fire Code requires fire suppression systems in all residential construction, regardless of size. So this is an exemption from that. The Board of Appeals felt this requirement would place undue burden on new homeowners or new home buyers, however, agreed the life and property protection value of fire suppression systems in homes built over 5,000 square feet was probably appropriate. Though arbitrary, several communities in Wyoming have adopted similar amendments to the fire code. The second would be omission of section R302.13, which is fire protection of floors above crawl spaces. The Board of Appeals felt this requirement placed, again, undue burden on property owners with little value added to life safety and property protection. The third change for this year would be carbon monoxide detectors be required in residential units, both new and existing, if interior remodeling occurs. The board felt adding this requirement added significant value to life safety and property protection with very little cost associated to the homeowner. An ordinance amending Chapter 15, Building and Construction of the Riverton Municipal Code, will be presented to you for first reading at the December 18th meeting. The ordinance will update our current code from the 2015 IBC to the 2018 IBC with the same amendments and exemptions as were put in place in 2015. It will also include the 3 aforementioned additions and omissions we just discussed. I would like to thank the Board of Appeals for their diligence in review of the 2018 International Building Code. The ICC puts out a memorandum that discusses the changes from each edition. That memorandum was 256 pages this year, so it was a lengthy process. That's why they were given a month and a half to review the documents and then submit comments. So I would wholeheartedly thank the Board of Appeals and their diligence in reviewing that. So with that, I would stand for any questions you might have.
So tell me about the makeup of the Board of Appeals. Who's on it?
So it is a 7-member board, and I can't remember all their names, so I'm going to have to.
That's okay.
The chairman is Terry Betts, and then Bill Davis, Eric Raymond, John Martin, Gary Pfister, and John Dedamore, all of which are within the construction industry or trades industry, plumbers, heating, ventilating, and air conditioning, HVAC systems, mechanical suppliers.
Okay.
People in the business.
People in the business. Okay. All right. Lance?
Your Honor, I'm curious, Eric, on the exception process. Tell me a little bit about how we just do that? Like, is that just something that we say we don't want to do that, be required to do these things? We get that ability to do that, or is there certain rules in which we can and cannot make those exceptions for the fire suppression, for example, in the less than 5,000 square foot, for example?
That's correct. The state does not require that we adopt all of the 2018 IBC. They do allow for exceptions to that. If we were, the only benefit, specifically on the fire suppression systems, the 2018 and actually the 2015 code requires fire suppression systems in every new residential home constructed. That would be a large burden on the new home construction, new home buying, and by and large, most states or most municipalities will remove that requirement from which the state allows. I hope that answered your question.
Thank you, Eric. So we'll see this next week, huh?
Correct.
All right. Any other questions on code? Okay. Chair would entertain a motion to reconvene into the special meeting.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Mayor votes aye. The chair would entertain a motion to adjourn the special meeting.
So moved.
Second.
Moved and second that we adjourn. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Good night, Sean.
Good night, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you.
8:08.